The morning docket moves like a slow conveyor. Forms stamped, names called, the low breath of the HVAC smoothing the edges of every sound. Judge Caprio thumbs a packet, glasses halfway down his nose, when a young man steps to the rail. Mid-20s, hair arranged to look unarranged, tie narrow, confidence wider than the aisle. Next case, Marshall Aiden. 35 over in a 25. Yes, sir. The young man answers, crisp and casual. But honestly, that's excessive. No one actually drives that slow there. A couple of heads lift. A bailiff pauses mid-stride. Caprio looks up. No heat in his eyes, only attention, the kind that makes a room sit straighter. You're calling the law excessive, Mr. Marshall? I'm saying it's a triviality. He allows a small smile that tries to pass for charm. I could have paid and moved on, but, well, you know who my uncle is. Silence tightens, clean as a new bandage. A phone camera rises, then sinks. Caprio doesn't blink. We have no uncles in this room. Only facts and responsibility. Aiden's smile returns, slimmer now. With respect, Your Honor, this feels like theater. A formality. Good, Caprio replies. Then let's make the formality educational. He nods to the clerk. The lights dim a shade. A screen hums to life. Grainy street view, late afternoon light stretching long. A sedan enters frame, silver, quick, decisive. At the crosswalk, a man with a grocery bag steps off the curb. The sedan slices through the gap a heartbeat ahead of him. The bag swings, oranges jump inside like startled fish. The pedestrian flattens himself back to the paint, mouth forming a word the camera can't hear. A few in the gallery inhale at once. No one speaks. Caprio lets the clip run again, then freezes the frame at the near miss. The car's nose past the stripe, the man's heel hanging over danger by a thumb's width. He turns the sound off. The silence is louder. Still a formality? Aiden's jaw squares. He stepped out. I didn't do anything wrong. Caprio studies him as if measuring where certainty ends and denial begins. The statute isn't a suggestion. It's a promise we make to strangers that they can cross a street and go home alive. The judge gestures to replay, one more pass, slower. The sedan leans like a thrown dart. The man's shoulder jerks, an orange rolls, a small bright planet escaping gravity. Caprio clicks the remote. The screen goes black. In this courtroom, he says evenly, we treat small things seriously because they keep big things from happening. Aiden lifts his chin, but the edge isn't as sharp. A murmur in the back row resolves into quiet again. Somewhere, a clerk's pen stops its steady scratch. Caprio closes the file and folds his hands. We'll proceed, Mr. Marshall. With truth, not shortcuts. The young man shifts his weight. The swagger doesn't vanish, but it looks suddenly borrowed, like a jacket that doesn't quite fit when the lights change. The room waits, the air carrying that fine tremor that means a story has moved past inconvenience and found its stakes. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Caprio lets the silence linger until it starts to press on the young man's composure. Then, quietly, Mr. Marshall, tell me, what do you do for a living? I'm a consultant, Aiden says quickly, as if the title itself should command respect. Municipal strategy, technically. I work with the mayor's office. So, you advise the administration? In part, yes. His tone edges toward pride. The mayor is my uncle. Caprio nods once, expression unreadable. And that connection is meant to mean what, exactly? Aiden exhales, feigning humility. Nothing improper, sir. Just, I'm being transparent. I didn't expect to be here for something this minor. The judge studies him for a moment. Tell me, he says evenly. Do you often dismiss things you consider minor? I try to be efficient, Aiden replies. My uncle always says time is money, and wasting either is the worst offense. Caprio sets his pen down. Your uncle runs a city where the law is not a currency, Mr. Marshall. Efficiency doesn't exempt anyone from responsibility. Aiden's jaw tightens. With respect, Your Honor, we're talking about a few miles per hour. Not exactly a felony. Caprio leans back, eyes narrowing slightly. Do you know how many people this city lost last year to a few miles per hour? 14. Every one of them was killed by someone who thought the same way you do, that the rules were too small to matter. The room goes still again. Aiden's mouth opens, then shuts. Caprio flips through the papers before him. According to this report, there was an accident 3 years ago. The driver was registered under the name Marshall. Any relation? Aiden's voice drops. My father. The judge's tone softens, but the air doesn't. He died in that crash? Yes, Aiden says quietly. He was driving home from work. They said he was going 10 over. I was 16. He looks up, frustration creeping into the edges of his voice. But that has nothing to do with this. Caprio folds his hands. It has everything to do with this. You learned early how quickly control disappears. You know what happens when someone believes they're untouchable. Aiden looks away, toward the polished floor where light breaks into squares. I'm not my father. No, Caprio says, but sometimes we inherit more than names. We inherit attitudes. The ones we don't question until they hurt someone else. The young man doesn't answer. His confidence, once solid, begins to look like something he's balancing rather than wearing. Caprio lowers his voice, almost gentle. Tell me, Mr. Marshall, do you think your father meant to harm anyone that day? Of course not. Neither did the man you nearly hit. Aiden's throat moves, but no words come. Caprio glances toward the gallery. The murmurs have faded entirely. Even the bailiff stands motionless. The law doesn't care about influence, the judge continues. It cares about humility, and I'm starting to think that's what you've been avoiding. For the first time, Aiden's shoulders drop. You don't understand, he mutters. People expect me to be confident. That's how you get things done. Caprio tilts his head slightly. Confidence isn't the problem, son. It's what happens when you confuse it with entitlement. A faint stir runs through the spectators, the kind of quiet agreement that doesn't need words. Aiden feels it. He looks smaller now, not weak, just human, caught in the sudden awareness that the mirror he's been facing isn't flattering. Caprio closes the file, his tone returning to calm. We'll come back to the citation later. For now, I want you to think about what your father left behind. Not his car, not his name, his example. Decide whether you're honoring it or repeating it. The judge strikes the gavel lightly, a soft punctuation rather than an end. Aiden nods once, but doesn't look up. The swagger from earlier is gone, replaced by something quieter, a man beginning to hear himself for the first time. Outside, through the narrow window, a siren wails in the distance. It fades quickly, leaving behind only the hum of fluorescent lights and a courtroom holding its breath. Caprio adjusts his glasses and turns another page in the file. His tone is measured, but there's something deliberate in it. An invitation, not a strike. Mr. Marshall, the citation notes your car was captured on another intersection 10 minutes before this incident. You were holding a phone. Were you aware of that? Aiden blinks. I was checking directions. While driving 60 in a 25? He forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. It was quick, Your Honor. Caprio doesn't move. The report says you were recording. For social media. Aiden shifts, the confidence flickering. Maybe for a second. It was a joke. The judge leans slightly forward. Would you like us to play it? Aiden freezes. No, sir. That won't be necessary. It's already been archived, Caprio continues. The city's traffic system syncs with patrol footage. We have a copy. The lights dim again. The screen hums to life. The courtroom watches as the young man on video grins into the camera, sunglasses catching sunlight. Look at that. Old cop on the corner, and I'm just flying past. Laws are for people with time to waste. He laughs, the sound quick, careless. When the clip ends, nobody speaks. Even the air seems to pause. Aiden's color drains. That was sarcasm. I didn't mean it. Caprio doesn't respond right away. He looks at the image frozen on the screen, the laughing face, hands steady on the wheel. Then he turns to the young man before him. Same face, but drawn now, stripped of bravado. Words have a way of revealing what we hide behind, he says quietly. Tell me, do you know Officer Dempsey? Aiden frowns, thrown off. No, sir. Should I? He's the officer you mocked in that video. He was killed 3 days later, chasing a stolen car down the same street you filmed on. A gasp moves through the room, thin but sharp. Aiden looks stunned, almost childlike. I didn't know. I believe you, Caprio says. But ignorance doesn't erase consequence. The judge glances toward the back of the courtroom. Officer Dempsey's son is here today. He wanted to see what people look like when they think the law doesn't apply to them. Every head turns slightly. A young man in uniform sits motionless, his expression unreadable. The weight in the room thickens until even breath feels heavy. Aiden's voice breaks the silence, unsteady now. I wasn't trying to disrespect anyone. It was stupid. I thought it was harmless. Most harm begins that way, Caprio replies. A small act. A quick laugh. A moment that costs someone else their peace. He lets that hang before continuing, softer now. Mr. Marshall, you remind me of men I've seen before. Bright, certain, blind to their own velocity. The difference between arrogance and tragedy is often a single heartbeat. Aiden lowers his gaze. His hands, once folded with the ease of entitlement, tighten into fists on the table. The silence in the courtroom feels personal now, not judicial. Caprio's voice is nearly a whisper when he speaks again. This case began with a traffic ticket. But what's on trial isn't speed, it's perspective. Maybe it's time you slowed down long enough to find yours. The gavel doesn't fall. Not yet. The sound of his words alone is verdict enough. Caprio sits in silence for several seconds, the weight of the room pressing against the wood-paneled walls. When he finally speaks, his tone is calm, too calm. Mr. Marshall, he begins. Do you understand that what you call a mistake is not just a violation? It's an act of arrogance against the very system your uncle swore to uphold. Aiden straightens slightly, though the bravado that once steadied him feels brittle now. With respect, sir, it wasn't arrogance. It was an accident. Nothing more. Caprio's reply is immediate, almost surgical. Then let's hear from someone for whom that accident was not nothing. The doors at the back open softly. A young man in a cadet's uniform steps forward, Mark Richards. The air shifts as he approaches the stand. He doesn't look at Aiden right away, only at the judge. My father was Officer Dempsey, he says evenly. The man this one laughed at on video. Aiden turns, face pale. I didn't know. Maybe not. Mark interrupts, voice still low. But you knew you were mocking the badge. The people who stop when others keep driving. His words land without force, yet they hit harder than a shout. Even the bailiff lowers his eyes. I'm not here to punish anyone, Mark continues. I just want to know that someone in this room understands what carelessness costs. He reaches into his pocket and takes out a tarnished police badge, his father's. He sets it gently on the bench before the judge. The small clink of metal on wood echoes like a gavel strike. I don't want his death to be used as an argument, Mark says. But I do want someone, for once, to answer honestly. Caprio studies the badge for a long moment before looking back to Aiden. Mr. Marshall, he says quietly, are you ready to answer honestly? Aiden's lips part, but no sound comes. His eyes flicker toward the badge, then back to the judge. Finally, his voice breaks free, small, uneven. I don't know, he admits. I'm tired, sir. Tired of the rules, the pressure, the expectations. Everything's decided before I even open my mouth. I didn't choose this life. For the first time, the words sound real, not defiance, not performance. Just exhaustion. He runs a hand through his hair and stares at the table. Everyone thinks I'm privileged. But half the time, I feel like I'm just filling in for someone else's mistakes. Like no matter what I do, it's already written how I'll fail. No one moves. The courtroom, so quick to judge him earlier, now sits suspended between pity and recognition. Caprio doesn't interrupt. He lets the confession hang in the air, giving it space to breathe. Aiden exhales shakily. I mocked that officer because I thought it made me look untouchable. But I don't even know who I am without pretending to be that. The words hang there, trembling, honest. Mark looks at him, not with hatred, but something closer to understanding. For a moment, they're just two young men standing on opposite sides of a truth that neither asked for. Caprio folds his hands slowly, eyes steady but unreadable. He doesn't speak, doesn't nod. The silence itself becomes his verdict, one that demands reflection, not defense. The courtroom feels different now. The earlier tension has dissolved into something heavier, more intimate. Even the fluorescent hum above seems muted, respectful. No one claps. No one sighs. They simply sit with it, the sound of a man's armor finally cracking. Caprio rests his palms on the bench, the weight of years evident in the stillness of his movements. He looks at the badge lying between them, its metal dulled by fingerprints, its presence heavier than any gavel. Then he speaks, his voice steady but resonant. You said everything's been decided for you, Mr. Marshall, he begins. But today, for the first time, you're deciding something yourself. He glances at the clerk, who retrieves a sealed envelope from the judge's desk. Caprio opens it carefully, revealing an official letterhead. This arrived from the mayor's office this morning. His tone stays neutral, but the words cut through the silence. A personal request that this court, quote, handle the matter with understanding. Aiden stares at the floor. The air tightens again, not from anger this time, but from quiet disbelief. Caprio reads aloud. My nephew can be brash, but he's a good boy. He simply made a mistake. He folds the letter once, lays it flat, and looks up. I've seen a lifetime of good boys who believe mistakes erase themselves. They don't. Responsibility isn't a punishment. It's a choice to stand and face what you've done. A murmur stirs through the courtroom, not disapproval, but something deeper, a collective recognition of truth. Caprio turns to Aiden. You've spent your life being protected. That ends today. He lifts 2 envelopes, one in each hand. You will choose how this ends. He sets the first on the bench. This contains a standard fine, $500, and a permanent record of reckless driving. He places the second beside it. This one holds an address. A community center for veterans and widows of fallen officers. They're short on volunteers. He looks directly into Aiden's eyes. You can pay the fine, or you can give 40 hours of your time to people who've lost more than you ever will. The choice is yours. Aiden's throat tightens. And if I refuse? Then I impose the maximum penalty, Caprio replies, and I'll make sure the mayor's office is notified. But I'd rather see you earn something than pay it away. The young man hesitates. The courtroom holds its breath. Before he can answer, Mark Richards, the cadet, steps forward again. His expression has softened since the earlier confrontation. If he goes there, Mark says quietly, I'll go too. Not as a cop, just as my father's son. The words shift the room's energy completely. The tension breaks, not in relief, but in recognition of something rare, grace. Aiden looks up at Mark, searching for resentment and finding none. Why would you do that? Because my father believed people could change, Mark says simply. I'd like to believe it too. Aiden swallows hard. The arrogance that once shaped every word has dissolved into something smaller, truer. He looks back at Caprio. I'll do it, he says. The hours. I'll go. The judge nods once, satisfied. Then you've made your first real decision. He slides the second envelope forward. Aiden takes it with careful fingers, as if the paper itself carries weight. Mr. Marshall, Caprio adds, when you walk through those doors, you'll be serving, not the court, not your uncle, but yourself. Don't waste it. Aiden nods, his voice faint. No, sir. The judge leans back, folding his hands again. Good. Because the law isn't about punishment, it's about reminders. And you, son, needed one. The room exhales. The gavel strikes once, not to end the hearing, but to seal the moment, a sharp sound that feels, for once, like the beginning of something instead of the end. As Aiden steps away from the bench, the badge still glints faintly under the courtroom lights. Mark reaches to pick it up, pausing just long enough for their eyes to meet. No handshake, no words, just understanding. For the first time that day, Aiden walks out not as the mayor's nephew, but as a man who will have to earn his name. A week later, the courtroom hums with its usual rhythm. Papers sliding, voices low, the shuffle of shoes against tile. Judge Caprio is halfway through the docket when the back door opens quietly. A familiar figure steps inside. No tailored suit this time, no polished smirk. Just Aiden Marshall, dressed simply, jeans, a work jacket, hands calloused from something unfamiliar. He waits for the current case to close, then approaches the bench. Caprio looks up, recognition softening his face. Mr. Marshall, he says, voice warm but measured. You came back. Yes, sir, Aiden replies. I made my choice. He hands the judge a small envelope. Inside is a photograph. Aiden kneeling on a tiled floor beside an older man missing a leg, both holding mops, both smiling in quiet exhaustion. I thought 40 hours would feel like punishment, Aiden says. But it didn't. It felt like the first time I've done something real. The courtroom goes still. No grand gestures, no applause, just the unmistakable pulse of sincerity. Caprio studies the photo for a long moment. The image speaks louder than any statement could. You look different, he says finally. I am, Aiden answers. Those men, they don't complain. They've lost limbs, families, years, but they laugh like nothing can touch them. I realized I've had everything and still found reasons to be angry. A small smile crosses the judge's face. Perspective has a way of humbling us. Aiden nods. I didn't understand what you meant before, about responsibility. I thought it was about rules. It's not, is it? No, Caprio says softly. It's about connection. The moment you start caring about someone other than yourself, responsibility stops feeling like a cage. It becomes purpose. From the back row, Mark Richards stands. He's in uniform now, freshly pressed, badge glinting under the lights. He walks forward quietly, then turns to the judge. May I? Caprio gestures for him to continue. Mark reaches into his pocket and produces his father's badge, the same one he left on the bench a week earlier. He holds it for a second, then sets it down once more. I think this belongs here, he says, because this is where justice actually happened. He looks to Aiden, meeting his eyes. My father would have respected what you did. So do I. Aiden's throat tightens. Thank you, he says, voice barely holding. Caprio looks between them. Two young men who came into his courtroom as opposites and are leaving as something closer to equals. He clears his throat, his tone gentler than it's been all morning. Mr. Richards, your father's service reminds us what courage looks like. Mr. Marshall, your change reminds us what redemption feels like. Both belong in this room. He pauses, choosing the words carefully. The law, gentlemen, is not here to punish, it's here to remind. That we all stumble, that we all get the chance to stand again. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then the clerk, breaking formality, begins to clap once, quietly, respectfully. Others follow, not loud applause, but the kind that comes from people who've seen something rare and true. Aiden looks down at the photograph still in Caprio's hand, the one of him at the veteran's center, and exhales. You were right, Your Honor, he says. About the law reminding us. I think it reminded me who I actually want to be. Caprio nods, eyes kind but serious. Good. Then keep becoming him. The gavel strikes once, final but soft. As the sound fades, Aiden turns toward the exit. The light from the high windows catches his face. Older somehow, grounded. Mark follows a few steps behind, his father's badge back in his pocket. Outside, the city hums. Cars, voices, the familiar pulse of life. For the first time in years, Aiden doesn't feel like he's racing it. He looks up at the sky, breathes, and walks forward, not as the mayor's nephew, not as the reckless driver from a viral clip, but simply as a man who finally learned how to slow down.